Hey everyone, welcome to day 8, and we've got a bright art journal page today that goes on a bit of a journey. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to do when I first started, but I wanted to add some blue, I wanted to add some clouds, and then go with whatever happens. So I'm just adding a bit of water to my page, and then I'm just spreading out some blue dilution paint just with the water to let it flow on the page really thinly rather than the way the thickness is of the paint, and also then just lightens out the colour, gives it a bit of a different shade as you're putting on, even though you're only using one colour. So you can see there, just making sure the page is fully covered, even though the cover isn't exactly even. So you can see there's different depths to the colour. So just shaking up some white paint here, and I'm just going to use a paintbrush to paint on my clouds, which is, you know, not always the best way. I think maybe a sponge might work for some kind of a circular shape of a cloud rather than here, but I make it work anyway. So I don't want it fully covered. Clouds are see-through, so I was having that thought as I was painting them, and just having a play with, don't want straight edges either, so just moving the brush around in sort of circular kind of a motion rather than a brushy motion. A stripy motion, I guess, is probably what I'm avoiding. So you can see there, I'm just putting some clouds on. Nothing too technical or hard to do. Clouds are very forgiving in terms of painting a shape. So I wondered if I wanted to leave it like that, and then I was like, no, I want the whole page covered. I don't want the, the quote or anything to be down below. I want this to be a background with everything on the foreground when I decide what I'm doing. So on goes the clouds, just adding a bit more paint as it dries. You can see that it changes as it dries. You can see, the colour lightens, and if you want some more colour, now's the time to do it. The good thing about these dilution paints, and actually I think this is a different white paint, but they dry so quickly. Now I wondered if I wanted some shadowing to the clouds, so I'm adding some of a darker blue dilutions just around the edges like that, and then I'm just smushing it with my finger just so it blends in rather than a harsh line. And I like the way that works. So around all the clouds we go. Now I've kept it in just because this is a very basic, simple designed kind of thing for an art journal, but you can see how it comes together. So I'm not being perfect about it at all. I'm no way near being artistic or good at drawing or anything like that. I'm just going with the flow and just seeing what happens. So it's nice to have that process in, so that sometimes when you're watching videos it can be intimidating because you see people do it so quickly and they make it look like it's effortless. But rest assured that is not the case with me at all. So just smudging it around. You can see my cloud gets a bit smaller and all sorts of goodness happens, because it's probably not the best way to do it. I don't even know, but it works, and it's going to be how I do it today. So smudging around, so you can see there they make it pop off the page and have a shadow effect so that they don't blend in, and it's not like a 2D kind of a picture. There's nothing wrong with having a 2D picture, but that I just wanted to have a play with seeing if I could make them look like 3D clouds on a page. That was probably not the best way to do. I was trying to define the edges a bit. You can see the shadowing then becomes a bit too bold in the background because there's too much of the dark blue. So I'm going to go back in with some white, I believe, just cleaning up that off the blue. So I want adding some even darker blue to the background just to add some more colour to the background rather than just one shade. I'm just using a baby wipe to smudge that on. So I'm just dipping it into the lid of the dilution paint and then just going around in between the clouds. So you can see that was a lot. I'm not putting a lot of colour everywhere, and it's not even. I want some of that base colour to go through. Then I'm using that baby wipe just to add some white over that so that the edge, the shadowing that I've done isn't so harsh, like the lines aren't so harsh. Just smudging again with my finger. So just have a play. If it takes you forever to do, then it's the process, not the finished product. So I learnt a lot from this page and it was quite fun. I didn't even realize how long it had taken me, and I can't even remember how long, but it's nice to just have a play. Art journal for me is just that, having the process and having fun while it's going on. Now this was just way too much, so try to take it off with my baby wipe and smudge and blend the edges. So yeah, like I said, the art journal is just so I can have a play with techniques and have a fun. And if, sometimes I've gone, to this stage and then I've gone, and just painted over it and started again kind of thing. Or totally go on in a different direction. Now this is a Stabilo oil pencil. It's basically like a watercolor pencil, I think. That's how I use it anyway. So I seen someone use it and mention the name, and I was at a craft shop, which very rarely happens because there's nothing there's no craft shops around here. And I grabbed it. So what I do is I'm just dipping it in water, and then I'm drawing on my page, and then I'm blending it out with my finger. So that's just adding a different line of shadow and a bit more definition to the clouds. You could do the same with any kind of black, I guess, but this is just easier because it's more controlled. It's a pencil, so you're not having a thick line until you blend it out or anything like that. You could use like a paint pen or something, but that would be very not harsh, I don't want to say harsh, very bold line, because obviously it will be a bright color because paint pens have that glossy paint in them. But maybe you could definitely find something, I'm sure, some watercolor black paint, or you could use the black dilution paint just sparingly, especially if you water it down. So you can see there my clouds are very bold now. They're definitely clouds. And I wondered if I could bring in some die-cutty kind of clouds. So I'm just cutting that out, fussy cutting a cloud that I just basically drew with a Sharpie. Nothing spectacular to the cloud. The good thing about picking a cloud is that you can draw it and you can paint it quite easily. They're very forgiving. So this just takes it to the next bold step. I think this makes it pop off the page and make it more of a more realistic kind of a background rather than a 2D background. So you can see my clouds are starting to pop off, but then adding these clouds that I've cut out and they're going to stick up on top, then adds another dimension to the page and another pop of interest. So on they go. I'm just cutting them out. You can see I'm not being particular about the shape of them, the size of them. I'm just having fun with how they go on and how it looks together. And I move them around. You know what it's like when you're putting things on. You cut them out, you put it there, and then when you do the next one, you're like, oh, actually this one needs to go over here and this one's going to go there and whatnot. So just have a play. You could, if you didn't feel very comfortable, I'm sure you could find an outline of a cloud online to print and cut out. But I just did not want to bother with setting up my printer, opening my computer and doing that. If I did that, I wouldn't go back to my craft room. I just need to get things hammered out at the moment and enjoy what's happening rather than get distracted with leaving that area and doing something totally different. So, some bigger ones, some smaller ones, medium size, whatnot. I've just used an offcut of cardstock that I've kept from cutting, like a 12 by 12 down to a 9 by 12 kind of a size. And they're always handy to keep for stamping or layering, or for in this process, cutting out some shapes. So I am going to stick these down with some gel medium on top and bottom, so they will become part of the page rather than popping off like they do now. you could definitely just stick them down with some double-sided tape or some foam tape if that was the look you were wanting. But I wanted to make sure that they were stuck, but also wanted that look of them being different to the painty background, but also being part of the background rather than being too much of a focal point and sticking up. So now before I put down my clouds, I had the brilliant idea, and this is where my page starts to come together. I'm going to put a sun in the middle. So I'm just going to use some gesso, using my spatula to put it on, and just going around in a circle shape, just because I wanted to mute down that blue and not have it be see-through through the paint, and not have to put millions of layers of yellow and orange onto that to cover the blue. So on it goes, just smushing it with a baby wipe just so that it's not harsh lines in the background that are going to show through the paint layers, and then on it goes. So just using the yellow to make my base shape. Nothing, I didn't measure out a circle. If you wanted to, you certainly are welcome to. Now I'm just using the line of my paintbrush to add some sun rays all the way around. Some are thinner, some are thicker. Now using the the orange. So my lids are above me, so that's why I'm not reaching to the side there. And I'm just spreading out the colour, spreading out the sun rays, and just making it, I didn't want it just the bold yellow. I wanted to have a bit of definition to it and some of the colour. I wanted to cover up the clouds in the middle there and part of that one on the right that was getting too big, but also wanted a focal point. So this sun sort of, you can see the clouds are in the background and the sun is in the foreground of the paint, even though they're all just on one page. The way the shadowing of the clouds make it look, that's how it works. So just basically blending in the colour. I don't want it to be harsh, like here's the yellow and here's the orange. I want it to all look like it's one big sun. So on goes my clouds. So just like I said before, I'm just using gel medium on the bottom, so you glue it down just like normal glue, and then I put in gel medium on the top. One, it protects it, so if you are going to put any more layers on, gel medium's the way to go, because then it just is protected, it's not going to soak in all that colour. But two, because it makes it part of the page, so you can see even though those pop out in the foreground more than the painted clouds, they aren't popping out so much that they're, not part of the page. So on they go, and just like in real life, clouds sometimes cover up the sun hides behind the clouds. It's going to do that here. That just means that, when you're having two different kind of shapes on your art journal, it just blends it in and makes it part of the page rather than something stuck in the foreground. I'm just having a play, just working out where I want them to go. Thank goodness that was gel medium, because where I dropped it there, it's going to be just dry clear. So basically, this is a really easy art journal page to make, especially if you're not feeling too confident with your painting ability, which I am definitely not. These are two different shapes that are so easy to do. Sun and a cloud. You don't even really have to think. So using the little offcut there. And I try to use this offcut so badly. But it's like the wrong side. But that's okay. I don't have to use everything. And yeah, so we're going to come to the finishing touches. So one more cloud. I just needed that space to be filled. Oh, two more clouds, sorry. My bad. So you can see there, not even thinking about the shape, just on it goes. Clouds are just a straight line and then some bubbly kind of lines. Or you could have bubbles underneath rather than a straight line. It just depends on what you're looking for. There's never a right or wrong way to draw anything. let alone a cloud. Gosh. So on these ones go, and that's going to be the end of the cloud making, I guess. Cloud fiddling around with and trying to work out what. I didn't like that shape of that paint one. That's what it was down the bottom. So I needed to cover up part of that. And then there's that white, more bluey space up the top, some blank space. So I did get a bit of yellow on that cloud, so just pulling that off with a baby wipe. And I'm just going to stamp out this girl. Now my stamp pad is not big enough, of course, but get there by being very careful. And I've pulled out the quote, girls just want to have sun. So, you know, like Cyndi Lauper, girls just want to have fun, but a play on words. And I figured then I needed to have a girl on there. And what better excuse to use this girl stamp than to have this on this page. So I do colour it in with some watercolour paints. And I believe I don't keep that in because it was a horrific experience. But if you want to, you know, there's plenty of videos of people who know what they're doing with watercolouring. I basically just add the water to the watercolour paints and then paint it on, just like I'm colouring in with pencils or textures, you know, like when you're 12. So definitely just, once again, have a play with it. I cover it up and I undid things and used paper towel to soap up the colour, and it was just too long of a process. I did do a derpy face, to steal my children's word, but I covered it up and made her a dark-skinned girl rather than see that crazy face. There's a reason why there's no faces on these stamps. It just looks really cute without one. So I'm going to just gel medium her on there, put some on the back, and then didn't think about it. Watercolor is water activated pigment, so obviously when I put the gel medium on top, it does spread a little, so you have to be very careful. So on she goes, and I didn't even really need the gel medium on top, but I always feel once I've stuck something down with gel medium on the bottom, it's nice to stick it down on the top as well, just to make sure it's doubly stuck to the page. So I tried it at the beginning and then realised it's going to spread and didn't do it. Now just using a brush marker, a Faber-Castell Pitt pen to write on my quote, and that's the end of this page. I hope you've enjoyed the process and feel you could do something as simple as this as well. Have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow's video. Bye.